Hello, hello. I am back to help you do this thing called life. We've been talking about Jesus and his emotions, his temptations, all the things that made him a human like we are. And we are now in Mark 15, verses 1 through 20. And yesterday, I actually talked about those verses. And, even as I um, was just thinking today, I didn't want to overlook the whole reason that the Lord has me on this little journey through his humanity. I kind of gave the facts about what was happening, and I talked about his responses, or his response, which was really silence. But I think it's very important for us to take a moment to think about his internal struggle, because and not that he wasn't at peace. However, y'all, sometimes we go through a lot to enter that place called peace. So many times we have things that we fight through, and visibly we may give the proper response. Visibly we may do the right thing, but what kind of internal fight is going on? So let's look at where he was. This was the man Jesus, 33 and a half years old, and he was in a place where he wasn't defenseless, but he had to be defenseless. There was a lot that he could have done. He himself was the Word. The Word said not a word. The Word was silent. But 33 and a half had given the last 3.5 years of his life to people. Everything he did was for us. It was for the people that he loved, for the people that were in his life. And here we go. He has been, well, now when they came to pick him up from the garden, Peter did set it off real quick, right? Peter took that sword, chopped dude's ear off, and then Jesus was like, Peter, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, man. And he put the ear back on, right? But then if you recall, everybody scattered. Like all the disciples pull up stakes and they left. Well, then it tells us that Peter started following from a distance. And then when they got to where the chief priest was, he was out by the fire. And I didn't talk about it because it wasn't Jesus, and we're talking about his temptations. But I think it was the end of the 14th chapter was when Peter was out there cussing like, yo, didn't I tell you I don't know him? That was when he denied him. But here Jesus is. Everybody he stood up for. Everybody he fed a minimum, like way more than 8,000. Because it was 5,000 at one time, 3,000 another time. Not counting women and children. Think about how many he'd healed. Think about how many he had set free. Think of all the stuff he did for everybody. And then there were none. There was nobody. What kind of stuff was going through his head? What kind? I believe that he had thoughts of his heavenly home. I believe that was because, it says for the joy that was set before him. So I believe the set before him was kind of twofold. This is just me. I believe that the joy that was set before him was, I get to go back home with my daddy. And I also believe the joy that was set before him was us. Us. He endured the cross for us. So I believe he got joy out of that. But I do believe a battle was ensuing. I do believe he was having... if you knew that you were in your last hours, don't you think your mind would be going over your life? And so just tonight, you know, take a few moments in your quiet time. If you're seeing this on another day or whatever, just take a few moments and thank Jesus for not just dying for us, but for living for us, for enduring for us, for going through for us, for closing his mouth for us. And let's look at, remember how when he was tempted in the desert, one of the things that the enemy tempted him with was call the angels. Call the, right now in that space. He could have been calling the angels, but he didn't. He didn't. And so, again, we want to look at what he did. When you're in that place and when you're in that space and your mind keeps going about what has happened and maybe how you took care of those people, how you looked out for those people, and nobody's there. We just got to know, like him, we got to fix our minds not on what's behind us, but on what's ahead of us. Let's look forward. Let's know that there's always a reward for our go through. And let's just go to what we know. I believe that's what Jesus did. I believe he went to what he knew. He knew the word. And there's a time, oh, this is good. Yeah. There's a time when you don't, now there's a time to speak, but there's also a time to keep silent. And I think there's a time when you can speak the word, but there's also a time you need to be the word. And I believe that in that moment, Jesus became all that he'd ever taught in that space. Yes, he was the word, but I believe that even the word had to take a moment and say, whew, this is who I am. This is what I'll do. All right, y'all. This was longer than I meant for it to be, but he's worth it. This has been One Moment with Marcy. I'll be back tomorrow with another moment of momentum producing inspiration. In the meantime, stay encouraged and remember you gotta flutter before you can fly. But doggone it, flying is in your future. I love y'all.